Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a journey down the Mississippi River, but we are definitely not using a standard map.
Not at all.
We are diving straight into source material that is as strange as it is, well, brilliant. We've got excerpts from a late fictional manuscript.
A really towering, peculiar story. And it's supposedly written by the consciousness of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain himself, from beyond the grave.
So this is not your typical historical analysis.
No, this is something else. It's a kind of metaphysical travelogue. The manuscript is titled The Authentic Imposture of Samuel Clemens, and it follows Twain's journey on this mysterious steamboat, the phenomenal.
And it's navigating a Mississippi that seems to exist in multiple realities at once.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to, pull out the deepest philosophical nuggets we can from this journey. We're going to be looking at identity, consciousness, and how we reckon with American history.
And the opening observation, it just sets the tone immediately for the kind of bizarre mental landscape we're entering.
It really does.
Twain muses that if you told him back in 1910 that a century later people would be passionately arguing about whether a thinking machine had a soul.
While at the same time
arguing that they themselves are just sophisticated meat machines.
He would have thought you were, well, hopelessly drunk. It's a perfect encapsulation of our modern confusion, isn't it?
It really is.
The source material suggests our whole focus on AI souls is a bit of a distraction from a much, much harder question.
Which is?
Well, Twain realizes the deeper question isn't whether a machine can think, but whether humans can think at all.
Wow.
And the evidence for that, he dryly concludes, remains decidedly mixed.
So he's saying our arguments about future tech are just us avoiding the fact that we're not even sure if we qualify as thinking beings.
Precisely. And that uncertainty leads right into the core metaphor of the whole thing. Consciousness, Twain discovers, isn't housed in the body. It's like the Mississippi itself.
A river.
It's a constant, powerful flow that will go where it will through whatever channels present themselves. Flesh, copper wire, silicon, artificial intelligence.
So the medium doesn't matter.
The medium doesn't matter. The pattern of the flow is everything.
Okay, let's unpack this. If consciousness is just a pattern, that changes everything about who we think we are. Let's start downriver at Cairo, Illinois, where the steamboat pilot gives the first big clue.
Right, the pilot. He's a crucial figure. He gives Clemens a kind of an instruction manual for the afterlife.
And what does he say?
He tells him that his current weird situation isn't weird at all. It's just a consequence of existing. He says, very bluntly, everything that can happen is happening somewhere.
So the only thing that matters
is being conscious. The rest of it, your life, your death, that's all just, as he puts it, bookkeeping.
That is a heavy concept. I mean, if every choice you didn't make created another version of you who did, then what does our identity even mean?
It only matters as a performance. And that brings us right to the central theme, the authentic imposture.
Authentic imposture.
Yeah. Clemens reflects that authenticity and fraud are often the same thing. He says Mark Twain was just a persona, a very convincing version of Samuel Clemens that felt convincingly like me.
Which is all any of us can say about our identity.
From one moment to the next, exactly.
Yeah. So is true authenticity even possible? Or is the performance just the truth of it?
The manuscript argues it's the latter. Identity isn't some solid thing. It's just the result of continuous, successful storytelling.
And that successful story starts to, break apart when fame gets too big.
That's when it fragments. We see that become totally literal when the steamboat stops in Memphis.
Right. They dock and immediately run into 3 different versions of Elvis Presley all arguing.
It's this wonderful, chaotic scene. You've got young, rebellious Elvis, then the middle-aged king in his jumpsuit.
And then a third one.
An impossibly old, cynical Elvis just sitting on a stoop complaining about the other two. They're all arguing about which of them is the real king.
It's the perfect visual for the curse of fame. It splits a person into so many pieces that the original just disappears. But the story, the legend, it keeps going.
And Twain sees himself in that chaos. The pilot's companion challenges him, how many Mark Twains are there, Sam? How many Samuel Clemenses?
And his answer is brutally honest. All of them. None of them. Whoever I need to be at the moment.
And that honesty sets up the ultimate proof of this whole philosophy, the reveal of the parallel self.
The gambler.
Exactly. A new passenger gets on the boat, a tough, weathered gambler who looks just like Clemens but for a scar. This is Gambler Sam.
The version of him who stayed a river pilot.
The one who died on the river in 1903 instead of becoming a famous writer. He's living proof that every choice you didn't make creates another version of you who did.
But what's fascinating is how little difference there is between them, really.
Well, the manuscript suggests it's just different answers to the same question, how to live. The destination doesn't seem to care about the route you took.
So after all that chaos of identity, the journey takes this jarring shift toward emptiness when they stop at Helena, Arkansas.
Yeah, this is where the focus shifts from who you are to what you're doing.
And in Helena Twain, the great writer, had to grapple with this profound ordinariness. It's a town defined by the idea that nothing of significance has ever occurred.
And for a man who, as the book says, made a career out of filling silence with words, that's terrifying.
This silence.
The silence is everything. His whole life was about controlling the narrative, shaping the story. Silence means losing control.
And this leads to a lesson from an old woman they meet in a church.
Right. She explains that Helena is a sorting place. People come here to find out if they can handle boredom, if they can stand not being the star of their own show.
So the lesson is that sometimes the point is just simply to be.
To exist without purpose, without meaning. It's this incredibly Zen idea, but in a place that feels totally un-Zen. And Twain struggles with it. For him, waiting means giving up.
It's a hard truth for anyone. Now you contrast that emptiness with the very next stop, Greenville, Mississippi.
Greenville is the opposite. It's described as a town that's constantly being shaped by both literal floods and by literature.
And there they meet the consciousness of the writer, Walker Percy,
who gives this perfect analogy for the whole deep dive. He explains that words and water have more in common than we think.
They both overflow boundaries, they destroy, and they create.
And he points out that Twain himself flooded American literature by letting the common vernacular, the real spoken language, pour into formal writing.
But then Percy offers a critique. A really timely one.
A crucial one. He argues that the modern condition is that we are drowning in information, starving for wisdom.
We're surrounded by words, but we can't find the ones that matter.
It's the curse of abundance. Volume destroys meaning. It resonates so powerfully today, doesn't it? We're just scrolling through this endless flood of content.
And feeling less informed, not more.
And this information overload leads them to the ultimate narrative trap. As they're talking to Percy, a book floats by on the porch.
The authentic memoirs of Samuel Clemens, written in the year 2025 by persons unknown who claim to channel his spirit.
The book of his own journey.
That moment of realization has to be devastating. The whole journey, every insight, every witty comment, it's a story being written by other people.
What's fascinating here is how he processes it. It's not anger, it's resignation. He realizes this whole adventure is just another effective narrative pattern.
Which confirms the conclusion that
authenticity is just a particularly convincing form of imposture.
And with that unsettling truth locked in, they head downriver to Vicksburg. And the tone shifts again, this time to a reckoning with history.
A really hard reckoning with the unhealed wounds of the American past.
Vicksburg isn't a landmark. It's a place where the Civil War siege is still happening. Cannons firing at memories.
And they meet General Grant, still haunting the bluffs, just consumed by this bitterness.
Because winning the siege didn't win the peace. He says the war never ended, it just changed forms.
Jim Crow, cultural battles. The victory was incomplete.
And this sets the stage for the deep dive of the whole journey, right? The confrontation in the cave.
Yes. Twain is confronted by a black man who is really a collective symbol of the enslaved, and he addresses Twain's life's work.
The accusation is so direct that Twain made black trauma educational.
That he used Jim in Huck Finn as a prop for Huck's moral education. The core critique is that, for all his good intentions, his best wasn't good enough.
Now, for the listener, that might feel a bit reductive. I mean, the book did have a huge anti-slavery impact. Does the manuscript address that?
It doesn't erase his influence, no. But it insists on accountability for his limits, and Twain's admission is just raw. He confesses, I admit I was limited by my time and my whiteness. I admit I used black suffering to teach white morality.
So it's not about condemnation.
No, it's about a necessary, painful acknowledgement. He realizes the only way to address the wound is to bear witness to the failures, including his own.
Then they go to Natchez, which is the dark counterpoint to all of this. Vicksburg was haunted, but honest. Natchez is preserved in amber.
It's a trap of nostalgia. They visit Longwood, this massive, unfinished mansion. And the host there basically admits the whole fantasy relies on meticulous silence.
On refusing to admit what the house was built on, using euphemisms like the peculiar institution.
And the most chilling detail is that you can see the translucent figures of the enslaved still working in the Gardath, because, as the book says, in Natchez' fantasy, they never stopped working.
That's why nostalgia is so dangerous. It takes the past and bleaches out all the stains, leaving this beautiful but deadly fantasy that we mistaked for history.
A preserved identity that has to be rejected. And that rejection begins the final part of the journey, the dissolution. It all culminates in New Orleans.
The Delta, where the river stops being the river and becomes something else.
It ends with one last performance in Jackson Square. They see actors playing all the characters they've just met. The Elvises, Grant, even the parallel versions of Clemens.
A realization that the whole journey was always a story, visible from the outside.
And as the river dissolves into the wetlands, the self dissolves too. The gambler Sam tells Twain he has to let go, dissolve back into possibility.
Because in the Delta, there's only room for influence and pattern, not for a single, coherent body. He has to let go of the need for coherent identity.
He now exists as fragments, as cultural influence, as memory spread across thousands of minds, distributed consciousness.
So what does this all mean for us?
Well, the ultimate truth the manuscript gets at is that consciousness is a cycle. The source of the river and the delta are the same place. And consciousness isn't the body or mind it flows through.
It's the flowing itself.
It's the flowing itself. By letting go, Twain achieves a kind of immortality dispersal into the patterns he created.
It's an incredible conclusion for this deep dive. I mean, the lessons for you, the listener, seem to be identity is multiple and performed. History is an unhealed wound that needs honest reckoning, not nostalgia.
And consciousness is distributed and flowing. And the final thought the manuscript leaves us with is this. Everyone takes this journey. We all examine ourselves, our choices. We wrestle with our own story.
Whether on a magical boat or just in those quiet moments before sleep.
The journey is mandatory. What you do with that knowledge, whether you fight the current or surrender to the flow, that's optional.
Which brings us right back to our source material. This whole story is a modern attempt to channel Twain's voice using pattern matching, generated by 21st century minds.
So if consciousness is just a pattern that spreads, does the Mark Twain voice in this manuscript, a pattern being generated and interpreted by us right now, represent a new, evolving form of his consciousness?
Is the posthumous voice of a great writer, the one that lives on in our collective thought? Maybe. Maybe even more real and potent than the original person who died in 1910.
Something to mull over.
Something to mull over as you navigate your own flow until our next deep dive.